Hi, my name is Josie Martin, and I am the owner of Titanium Storage, along with my husband, Ricky Moses, and little Samson Moses. You can see he's just a few months old at this time. And we own a small storage facility in Whitehorse, Yukon, comprised of 182 units, I think we have now. We did an small expansion of 2 more storage buildings a couple of years ago. It goes by so fast as you get older. But anyway, we operate at 95% capacity. And we, since 2011, which is when we developed our business, 6 months later, we've been operating at 95% capacity. And that is the reason for our expansion, a very aggressive expansion project happening this year, as a matter of fact, where we will more than double our capacity to, I think, 430 units in total. So the demand is there, and that speaks to our customer. And our customers, our external, our competitive advantage is our location as well as our customer service. And both, we have internal customers as well, which of course is us and our team of, I was going to say doctors. We're not there yet. Nope, not doctors, but let's go for lawyers and bankers and accountants, right? So that's our internal team. And yeah, so we're very excited about what's happening. And our Titanium Storage, our motto is supporting the needs of Yukoners' eventful lives every day. So on this next slide, I'm going to talk about the flow between our operations, flow between our rental processes, and then flow between the sub-process of unit rentals. The reason for this is that it dives into a little bit more detail and actually leads to the value stream map. So it'll give you an overview of what's going on in the background, and actually it was a good exercise for me. So I sitting at Tim Hortons studying today there for a bit and getting out of the minus 33 degree cold weather up here in Whitehorse, Yukon, and just sketched out this little map. So it starts first with operations. So we have 3 different operations. First, the financial and bookkeeping, which is basically the hub of any business, of course, right? The dashboard. Then the other 2 main different operations are forward thinking, which is our growth expansion project happening that I talked about in the previous slide, which is full on in its own. It's just its own entity altogether. And then we have the day-to-day, which I'm breaking out as the rental. And we have 3 different rental capacities or processes, and one is that we are a U-Haul dealer, and so we rent U-Haul vehicles when we have them. We'll talk about inventory well, not for U-Haul, but and then the second one is we rent parking spaces and then storage units. So those are the 3 operations that are working hard on, and they're just full on. Next, we go to flow between the rental processes. So I've just taken the operations of rentals and broken them down. I'm not going to speak to all of them, but like I said, we have U-Haul rentals, parking spaces, and then storage unit spaces. And then the third, storage unit rentals, is the sub-process, which is the focus of my paper and, of course, the value stream map going forward. So I'm just going to speak to the steps that happen within the process of renting a unit. And as you know, it's our 1-hour office hour that I'm speaking of. So customer arrives at the office, you talk to the customer. For me, it's profiling, asking questions, figuring out who they are, profiling. So at that point, then they will fill out a rental agreement. I'll receive payment. We can talk about payment another day because there's all different forms. We do not take debit, for example, but all kinds of other payments. However, some customers do arrive without payment and they still end up at being able to rent a unit, for example. Then I provide a programmed access card and a unit number, input their account information. I don't actually do that on the spot, but I've included that in the value stream map, as you'll see going forward, because if we were really busy, that would be an important step to do right on the spot and be included. We do it after the fact. And then after that, we walk the grounds. I feel that's really important. I take the customer directly to their unit, open the door, show them how to open the door, especially in the wintertime. The little rubber piece on the bottom of the door acts as a spring, and sometimes it seems like it's jammed and you can't open it. So things like that. Anyway, and then explain the procedure of how the automated gate works. And then we go back after that, and the customer leaves. And it's really important before they leave at that moment to check their access card to make sure that in fact it has been programmed correctly, so that we don't have to meet them again at another time shortly afterwards because they've discovered their access card doesn't work. So that, in a nutshell, is the move-in process for renting a storage unit. So in this slide, you're going to see my fantastic polar diagram that I'm so excited to share with you. And I just realized how long the recording is for my previous two slides. So I'm actually not going to speak very long in this department, although I do want to say, if you are going through and actually reading and having a look at it later, that there's a reason why we have cost, speed, and quality as customer values that are showing such a discrepancy in the polar diagram. And it's because I've included all of the operations, the full organizational, all of the operations, including forward thinking with the expansion project, internal and external customers, basically, is what I'm trying to say, in this polar diagram. And as I had completed it, I realized, well, actually, I should have done a polar diagram for each individual sub-process. And so it holds value for me, but it might not be super reflective going forward to the value stream map. So there you have it. Anyway, I'm pretty proud of it, and you can see customer value that we've come to understand is cost, speed, quality, flexibility, and dependability. And you can go through and read all of my commentary if you like. All right, we'll move on to the next slide. So here we come to the value stream map, and again, I'm going to try to be fairly quick because we're already 9 minutes into this presentation. So as you can see, our average cycle time, so that's one person going through the rental process, is 19.5 minutes, which is fairly accurate, actually. It was exactly that the other day when I was processing a unit, or a customer to rent a unit. Anyway, so I don't get 5 people in the office at once. It's winter time. We've had that in the past during busy season. This value stream map reflects a busy season office hour that has happened in the past. And the reason for this design is that it's likely going to be the case in the future with the expansion project happening. And so as you can see, we've got a takt time of 12 minutes. So that's 5 customers in the 60-minute office hour, right? And then if you have a process time of say 20 minutes, well, you can process 3 customers in the hour, not 5. That means there's some, I don't know if you're going to call it muda or what you call it, but there's something happening there where you're not meeting your customer demand anymore. So you're either going to have customers waiting, I don't know, you're going to have to extend your office hours or hire somebody, which is the plan for us, in order to meet that, JIT, that just-in-time process demand, so that you're not sitting around the office waiting for somebody to come in, and customers aren't sitting around waiting to be processed. So that's the goal, and that's reflected in this value stream map, and you can see that. Now, the only place that you might think that there's muda that I've indicated would be in step 1 and step 4, where we do the initial meeting and we spend some time having a conversation about their storage needs and deciding if they in fact need storage or not, and for how long, those sorts of what's happening in their lives, those kinds of conversations. And then the yard walk, so that they know exactly what to do, what the expectations are for moving in. And then I also explain the move out procedure at the same time, because move out is like, you give me a call, you drop off your access card, done, as long as you're paid up. Foreclosures is a whole different move out procedure. So I don't, the move out is, the move in is front loaded with information to mitigate time spent in the move out procedure. We don't even collect a damage deposit for that exact reason of not having to meet the customer to give it back, for example. So I'm just going to tell you a little story before I move on about the fact that spending time with somebody up front and having them feel so comfortable to walk through the door, I kind of, when I do and this falls into collections as well. When I do collections, I will spend time understanding the customer profile, and as long as we're having a conversation back and forth and communicating, they're good. We work out a payment plan. We just keep going with that. So for me, as an internal customer, that's a lot of time spent on my behalf. However, I think that transfers into, again, this whole competitive strategy thing that we're going for. The other side of that is that when it comes to foreclosures, which is part of the story, I have to work really hard to decide if the foreclosure action is going to be taken and then when. And so I was in that process with this particular unit. I had overlocked it and I was in the decision-making process. All of a sudden, just the other day, I'm in my office and fellow walks in. I don't think I'd ever met him. I didn't know who he was. And he came in with cash and he said, "I'm just coming to pay for my unit." And I said, "What's your name?" And he told me his name, and I knew right away that that was the unit I had overlocked. And I wasn't sure if I had actually cleaned it out or not, because I've cleaned out a few units in the past, and at this point it over the years becomes hard to keep up. So then as I was going back through the notes and I profile notes on each customer's account, I realized, no, I had not actually foreclosed his unit. He had actually not even made a payment, and this is 5 months into his rental. And so I said, "You know what? I think your unit is still there." And he fully expected all of his items to be gone. But he had the courage to walk into the office and meet me physically with cash in hand, in hopes that his items would still be available. And sure enough, they were. I took the lock off. He had paid in full, the whole amount. I don't know, I think it was $500 or something. And he walked away so thankful and so happy. So I don't know, is that going to go somewhere? Word of mouth, advertising, who knows? Anyway, both of us were pretty happy. Gotta say that. We'll move on to the next slide. Okay, so here we are with my last slide here. And before I talk about recommendations, just to follow up with Muda a little bit in terms of the internal customer, which would be actually myself. And I think that's where I need to focus on where the Muda actually is. And here's the reason why. We operate by appointment, as I've mentioned, and that's fine. But what's not fine is when there are no-shows. And what's actually not finer even after that is when there are no-shows, which happens seemingly more so than not, because you probably remember them, when they happen during an important family event. So Sunday morning, family breakfast, I'm down at the storage office waiting for a customer to show up, and it's a no-show. So you can imagine how I would feel, right? It's grating the whole bit. And I come away from that and I just figure out, okay, I try to think, what have I done wrong? How have I not profiled this? How have I not set it up properly? Because that's the last thing I wanted to do. And, I'm using Sunday morning as an example, be at the storage park, meeting a no-show, right? So that's going through my brain. But at the same time, it seems to kind of fashion a certain resolve, that I'm going to do better next time because I'm doing this research. And that brings me back to the recommendation piece here where it says provide more internal customer service. I know you can't see that on the slide, but it's all red because, titanium storage is red, right? And so that's what I got to work on. That's what we're going to work on. It will be mitigated. Anyway, it really does speak to the term of Kaizen, and Dennis in his 2010 definition says that every day we get a little bit better, we seek perfection, knowing we'll never achieve it. But that's okay. The journey is the point. So I've included here in my final slide, every day a little up. I really, really, really like that. And I think it goes beyond organizational, business stuff. It's families, it's people. And that's really what Lean is about. And in closing, well, do I have to close with my market growth strategy, advertise the hell out of it? But there you go. You can see the advertising going on there. And then just a funny story. You'll notice that one of the advertising pieces here is above the hockey rink in the Canada Game Center that nobody up here in the Yukon can survive winter without going to. So there it is. And I just have to, it's irony because the guy in the penalty box happens to be one of the owners of of his own sign. Anyway, pretty funny. All right. Thanks for listening, guys.